Greetings, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I have drifted into the Underworld. The Star Wars Underworld. I have a bad feeling about this.
Here we go. We must go to the lower levels. The Underworld.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
You're after something.
Ben.
Since I've started the Underworld, I've met so many great friends.
Chris.
I grew up in the 1990s, and mall packaging is nostalgic for me.
Dominic.
What I love most about Star Wars is that it's fun and it's all-round good times.
So, this is where the fun begins.
May the Force be with us.
This thing really moves!
Whoa! I like this!
I can't believe you came all this way to see me.
Why am I not in the intro? I gotta come up with a snappy line.
Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the Star Wars Underworld podcast, your weekly source for all the latest breaking Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. And this week, we are back to talk about Andor Season 2, Part 3. I think we'll all need to take a few minutes and just feel things together as we talk about these episodes. The Gorman Massacre, Mon leaving the Senate, big things happen. K-2SO also makes his debut. We'll have lots of fun breaking that down. Allegedly, we're also going to try and talk about Tales of the Underworld. I don't think that's going to happen. I think tune in 2 weeks' time for that discussion. And we may, again, theoretically try and talk a little bit about Star Wars Celebration Japan. But I think maybe, again, tune in 2 to 3 weeks' time for a real in-depth on-the-ground report from this event that was now 3 weeks ago, I think. We're just a little bit behind. We're really up to date on things here on the Star Wars Underworld podcast. But it's great to be back. I say that having missed the last month of shows. It's great to be back doing a full episode and breaking down Andor. I've really missed doing this. So we're going to have a great time. First, though, introductions are in order in case you're new to the show or you've forgotten who we are. Two of us have been away for a very long time. My name is Dominic Jones, and having been the sole member of the main Star Wars Underworld podcast to be here for the last month, he really needs no introduction, but we'll give him one anyways. It's the founder of the Star Wars Underworld, Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
How's it going, everybody? It's I would say it's good to be back, but I never left. I was always here. So yeah, it's good to have you guys back. Because it's been a bit and a lot's happened. My heart is still racing after those episodes. So a lot to get into. And so much just piling up. The Star Wars blizzard has just covered us over, and it's just we're swimming in Star Wars right now. So yeah, a lot to get into. We'll try to start chipping away at it tonight with the biggest thing. And yeah, I don't have anything else to say other than it's crazy.
Ben, I have so missed your mixed metaphors. We're going to be swimming through this blizzard. It's going to be a good
swimming
time.
I want that on a shirt. It's amazing.
Yeah. We haven't done merch in a really long time. It might be time to bring it back.
That's where we start. Mm-hmm.
And there's a whole, I think, subgenre.
You can make a lot of merch with the stuff that comes out of my mouth. Just saying.
Ben quotes. There've been a couple of doozies, and I think swimming through a blizzard in the Star Wars font should be the beautiful hot item at Star Wars Celebration Los Angeles.
Like swimming through a blizzard.
Yeah.
So poetic. Oh.
That other voice you hear who is so moved by the poetry of Ben's words. Back at long last from Japan, from the Raeside, it's Hannah Raeside.
G'day there. Yes, this raspy, grounded, deep voice you hear is me, surprisingly. If you can't tell, I've been abominably sick with a cold since getting back from Japan for the past almost 3 weeks now. I'm better. My voice is not quite there, but I'm here to jump into the most incredible 2 hours of Star Wars episodes we've ever seen, ever, in my opinion. So very excited to be here and very glad to be back.
I'd like to go back to 2022, Hannah, and tell her that you're saying this about.
I actually want to clip me.
That's
yes,
crazy.
clip me from 3 years ago, being
Say this
like,
about
"What the hell
Andor."
is this Andor? I don't get it."
It's actually the fact that
Crazy.
you hadn't been doing you've been out of commission, you've been completely disappeared offline. Like I didn't know any of your opinions about Andor. So like because like all this time I'm like, did you like it?
I hate it that much. I hate it that much.
Is it
I've
good
just
this time?
canceled YouTube. Yeah. Oh, I love it. So good. Yeah, but yeah.
Awesome. Well, we will get into it and discuss the brilliance that we just witnessed. Chris is not with us yet, although he may yet drop by for some chat. But here with us from the Sith list, it's the king of all Toms. It's King Tom Chansky. Tom, welcome to the Star Wars Underworld podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm, thrilled to finally be talking with you guys. And yeah, Ben, it's confusing, but I think swimming through the blizzard is a great metaphor because I feel, watching these episodes Tuesday night, I felt like I wasn't fully recovered from the week before. I'm still, what is going to happen with unscrewing the bottom of that thing? And then I am so happy for Bix that she got to do what she did to Dr. Gorse, and then emotionally, mentally had to deal with everything we got Tuesday. And then we also had something we might not end up talking about tonight, Tales from the Underworld. And, that was something to wrap my brain around. So it's a good time for Star Wars, bad time for people who like short podcasts.
This is true. Tom, it's really great to have you on the podcast. Like you said, it's kind of long overdue. It hasn't happened yet. We've known you for a while. And fun fact for everybody out there listening, Tom and I once starred together in a live reading as Darth Maul and Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yes.
I don't think it's available to be heard anywhere, and that's probably for the best.
Sorry,
I don't know. Yeah. Every now and then, Steele, if you're out there, put it out. Of course, I'll probably going to regret saying that once it does.
Oh yeah,
out, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it was 3 years ago, maybe. Yeah.
Celebration Anaheim.
Yeah. Who do you think was who, Hannah? Which one of us screams Obi-Wan and which one screams Darth Maul?
That's true. Dom, you got to be Darth Maul. Tom, you've got a very much Obi-Wan aura about you.
Thank you. That's one of the nicest things anyone ever said about me, but thank you.
Yeah. You are correct. You are correct. Yeah. We channeled Sam Witwer and James Arnold Taylor for an hour or for 20 minutes or however long that was. Anyways, maybe you'll hear it, maybe you won't. And if you do hear it,
we apologize.
We apologize, and you probably don't want to listen to it in public. Anyway.
No, you do not.
Anyway, we will get into things in just a second. A couple of quick reminders, as always, off the hop. If you're enjoying the show, make sure you subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, subscribe on Spotify. You'll never miss an episode that way. You can super chat with us during the live show if you want to ensure that we see your comment and get to it on the air. You can become a channel member. These are ways that you can support the show financially. And if you're listening or watching on a platform that allows you to leave a review, please do so. Keep the discussion going between episodes in the Discord. Ben and Joel are always cooking up new ideas over there. And follow us on social media at the SWU, and check out our extended network of various podcasts and YouTube channels and more. I guess it's not really more, but YouTube's and podcast channels. Anyways, let's get into things. And talk about Andor Season 2, episodes 7, 8, and 9. Messenger, who are you? And Welcome to the Rebellion. All three written by Dan Gilroy and directed by Janice Metz. Am I saying that right? I don't actually have it in front of me. I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head. But 3 terrific episodes. We'll get into things. We'll break it all down here. And we'll start how we always do, give some initial impressions. Tom, as our guest, start us off. What did you think of this block of Andor episodes?
Each week, it's super intense, and even more so than the last 2 weeks. It's been ramping up in intensity, and it showed a lot of things. I'm a big fan of the Rebellion. It showed a lot of things I finally wanted to see. We got to see Yavin. We got to see Mon Mothma leaving the Senate, something that was hinted at in Rebels. I know they felt I think it was an Entertainment Weekly article where they interviewed the Gilroys. They felt like they were retconning it. I felt it meshed very well with what we saw in Rebels because I went back and watched, and I didn't think it stepped on anyone's toes. And the action and character development was very well done. And, we saw K-2SO brought into the rebellion, and we had a very kind of humorous moment after a deep heartbreaking one, after an intense hour. And it's just amazing how this show can go from one to the other so seamlessly, I think.
Yeah. The only continuity issue I think there is that Erskine Samaj, or whatever his name is, apparently gets a whole new voice in between the end of Andor and Rebels, because I'm pretty sure he has a different accent too. I'm just saying, that's the only thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, continuity is.
We already worked this out. We already worked this out, though. I already headcanon it as how Princess Leia puts on a British accent when she's around Imperial. I think that's the same thing we're dealing with here. At least that's how I'm making it make sense in my head.
As soon as he sees Ezra Bridger, he's like, cartoon voice. Here we go. Hi, everybody. I work for Mon Mothma.
Sounding like that.
He was huffing some of those nebula gases. That was my headcanon. Ben's is probably more socially acceptable.
There we go. Hannah, what did you think?
Yeah, it's wait, specifically about the Mon Mothma part?
No, not really. About the episodes as a whole.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, if you have deep thoughts on that, by all means, share.
Well, I do, but yeah, no, I agree. I think the continuity for me is perfect. It's all good. Yeah, it's really hard to put into a short few sentences, I think, how I feel about these episodes. They're immaculate, they're breathtaking, the intensity, the purpose of these episodes are absolutely 10 out of 10. I just can't fault them. There's one tiny little gripe I have out of like the 2.5 hours of content we have, but I'll get to that when we bring it up. But just overall, insane. The most gripping and best Star Wars television that I probably have watched. It's my favorite episodes of any. Usually I say of any live action Star Wars because season 7 of Clone Wars is so perfect. But to me, this is on par, if not even better than Victory and Death of Clone Wars season 7 for me. So I'm pretty confident in saying this is the best Star Wars television ever. So that's not to hype it up too much, but that's my thoughts.
Yeah.
Follow that, Ben.
You seem really down on this. Benjamin, your initial impression of this trio of episodes.
Yeah, so I mean, what can I say that hasn't already been said a million times already? These are amazing episodes, and I was thinking today, like, kind of watching some reactions and going over them in my head, like it really is kind of the perfect it's the perfect movie in a way. I know we've all joked about, these are 3 Star Wars movies. Like, no, this is a movie. This is a 3-act structure of this, first episode is this great tension build up, reassessing what the characters are doing, reestablishing that relationship and seeing where we're at since the last year. And then moving into the next episode, which is the event, this gut-wrenching, horrible, just all the bad words that can describe the really bad thing that happens in episode 2. And then kind of the end, episode 3, which is this very tense, but also somewhat triumphant way, and this kind of hopeful end to the arc. And obviously we're not done with this show, and we know, and there's something that's very heartbreaking that happens at the very end of it. But I think overall it's like this, okay, bad stuff happened, but good stuff's happening. I think Star Wars is best when it really is very visceral, but also has that little teaser of hope at the end. Maybe at some point during the pod, I will play bad cop, and I will assess my 2 big criticisms of these episodes. some of one or two of them may be addressed in the next 3 episodes. It could be fixed. But I do have a couple of things I'm like, not a big fan of that. And I think, I'm not saying that these episodes aren't pretty much pitch perfect, but there's a couple of things. And I just have a lot of questions. I think overall, just like, okay, what's going on? Now we're on Yavin. How did that come about? Like, I want to know so much about everything. And it's not a bad on the show. It's just like, I want each of these episodes to be like 8 hours long so I can get all the information, and it's just not going to happen.
You know what I want, Ben? I want the show to be 5 seasons. That's what I wanted.
Would have been nice. Also, would have killed Tony Gilroy and Diego Luna. So
I would have thanked them for their sacrifice. But yeah, I love everybody's teasing their like one little criticism of these episodes, and I'm really interested to see where the overlap is, because I also have one, and I'm excited to see if it's the same as anybody else's. Because as everybody has said, these 3 episodes lay out just how brilliant this show is. They build thematically on previous episodes. This storyline has been built up in an expert way. We see the conclusion of a character's storyline, and we see the evolution of several character storylines all within these 3 episodes. And it's a lot that happens, but it all feels like it was earned. It all feels like it's done well, and none of it really feels rushed. It's kind of wild. You almost sort of, if you just sort of sat down to think about, okay, these things that need to happen in these episodes, you might think you'd spread them over more episodes, but it speaks to the quality of the show that Tony Gilroy and the writers and the directors and everybody who worked on it created, that they felt they could pull this off and have all of these things happen in these 3 episodes, while building up to them over the course of this season and last, while also leaving some room for, as we say, one more movie of action before we get to Rogue One. It's really just brilliant writing, brilliant direction, brilliant execution on just about every front. And these episodes continue to blow me away, as has this entire season. Let's talk about the massacre itself, because this is kind of the crux of everything, and we'll use it as kind of a jumping off point for everything else. But Hannah, I'll go back to you. What was your feeling as it was playing out? What was your reaction to actually seeing these sort of visceral horrors play out in front of us in Star Wars in this way?
I think it's something as confronting as it is. We have almost seen before, in a way. I actually liken this sort of story to be playing out in this way, and this concept being presented to us, very much some of the big arcs that were shown in Clone Wars. That's really a lot of their storytelling, and mentioning Saw Gerrera, the Onderon arc was almost very similar to how the Gorman situation was set up, and the kind of the interplay of who's really involved, and the radical group being positioned in a way that makes them look villainous to the galaxy, and the whole way it happens, very similar. So it felt familiar in a way that I think it's something that Star Wars always challenges, back to when George Lucas first created it. But the actual scene we get to see play out was so masterfully created in this artistic artwork that just flows from everything, from the music, the chanting of the Gorman people, to the visuals, the color of the crowd, to the coldness and the starkness of the Imperials, and the sort of characters of, even the smaller characters within the Imperial ranks. The guy, I don't know their name. Do they say their names? But the guys in charge of the certain troopers that go out first, and then the stormtroopers, each of them have their certain kind of flavor to them that contrasts with the Gorman people. And it just creates for this epic kind of, just sequence of events that is like an orchestra of chaos. It was just fantastic. I think it was, again, incredibly directed. this whole coming together. And I really love the complexity of having multiple storylines within this sort of central event. You had Cassian sort of wrestling with, should he have even done this mission? He's wrestling with, should he be this involved with Luthen and the rebellion and doing these missions? He's there, he's in amongst it now, and he's like, have I gotten in too deep? He wants to help, make sure Wilman's safe. Then you have all that is happening between Dedra and Syril, which is incredibly deep, incredibly moving. And then obviously just the fact of the Gorman people, the Gorman faction, are kind of facing their death and demise, really. And it's that weird thing where the audience knows it, but they don't know it. So you kind of left feeling you're just shouting at the screen this whole scene, being like, oh my God.
You feel like that one Gorman guy who actually like figures out that it's a trap and he's running around begging people to stop, to not go there.
That's
right.
Yes, that's so true. Like that, like the whole audience, I feel like feels like that one guy. Absolutely true. But just talking about the Gorman, this episode 8 essentially specifically was just what did I say? I said an orchestra of chaos. I love that.
Yeah.
I want to put that my own quote on the shirt. That's my one.
Next week we should all show up with t-shirts with our own quotes on it. Swimming through the blizzard, orchestra of chaos, good stuff.
So good. So good.
Yeah. The buildup of the Gorman front and like how we see them as these like wannabe rebels and how they become over the course of the year that we kind of miss, but through those episodes last week and then the first episode of this arc, we see this evolution of them. We see that they are true believers. We see that they, do have their best interests in mind, but they're also just losing. They're just losing, and they're designed to fail. We know that they're designed to fail, and yet you want the best for them. When they start singing, I guess it's supposed to be the Gorman national anthem. Like that's one of the most tragic moments in the entire show, because there they all are. They're doing this really solemn, powerful thing. And if you don't know what's coming, you might be really moved by that. You go, wow, this is such a powerful thing. It will rally people. People will understand. And then the sniper shoots the riot cop and all hell breaks loose. Tom, what did you think of the sequence and the build up to it?
It was, I think you said it well, that you knew what was going to happen. And where, seeing that, not if you didn't know it was going to happen, you'd feel a sense of pride. It's a very beautiful thing that these people are doing, standing up for themselves, but knowing what's going to happen is making it tragic. And I'd like to think that similar events are going on throughout the rest of the planet. And here they are telling a very personal story. They're focusing only on a handful of people. And the way they're doing it, where it starts with random chants coalescing into the national anthem. And then they had that one squad of trainees and the one guy no one liked, and they sent him out, and he didn't want to go, but the one guy with the scar down his face did it because he knew they were going to die. It was, orchestrated by Tony Gilroy, but also in story orchestrated by the Imperials. And, they were in a no-win situation, and Cassian shouldn't have been there. Wilmon probably shouldn't have been there. They went off on their own, and they were lucky to make it out alive, especially when Cassian had his run-in with Syril. And you felt for Syril that he realized that he was being used. This is what happens when you pony up to fascism. Eventually, they use you and throw you out too. And, he could have helped or done something, but he chose to use and take out his rage on Cassian instead of actually do something about it. And so his story could have been different. We saw Cassian's story, we saw the protester story, and we saw Dedra's story too, where she was proud to be doing what she was doing. She knew it was wrong. She did it anyway. And then in the end, she was left to live with that. So it was just so many little stories told very well.
Yeah. All coalesced around this event. Ben, let's dive into Syril here, because this is the end of his story. He dies in this episode. We now know what happened to our poor Syril boy. He gets shot in the head in the middle of a riot. These episodes are really an emotional roller coaster for him. He was kind of at his like personal high point at the end of last week, right? Like he has that really sort of pathetic moment where Partagaz says like, "Good job, Syril," and he's like, "This is the best day of my life." And like he's just he thinks he's running high. Little does he know he's actually being played by the people he thinks are praising him. And in this episode, we see him figure it out. We see him like realize the truth. He's forced to confront this awful truth, and he doesn't know how to handle it. What did you think of how Syril Karn like met his end, like the build up to it and then the act itself?
I mean, it would be kind of sad if he just been this pathetic douchebag all along and he got shot in the head. But it's the fact that in this episode he really finally grew a backbone and like stood up for himself. The person who had kind of taken over for his mom for being, you know, for being kind of his controller in a way. He stands up to her. He almost kills her, like Dedra. Like he chokes her to the point where she's willing to give away Imperial secrets and give up the jig to him over this. And him going into the crowd, which is I think maybe a different version of Syril may have not done this, but I think him realizing that, going into the crowd, and then going further into that and being in this moment where like he's seeing the horrors of the Empire firsthand, and he's living all this and seeing all things. And, in that moment, maybe he would have, I don't know if he would have joined the rebellion, but he definitely wouldn't have been with the Empire. And then he sees Cassian. That all happens. And then just that last moment of Cassian going, "Who are you? Like, what, I don't know you." And like, it's the embodiment of just like, I know a lot of people have done the Thanos meme, but it's true. Like, you took everything from me. I have no idea who you are. Like, it's that thing of just like, of course, Cassian has been through all this stuff. I don't even know if he ever really saw Syril's face. Like, he's met him once and he stashed him away on Ferrix, and then he's just done all this stuff. And Syril's been obsessed with him this whole time. And Syril is so in his head that he doesn't realize Cassian doesn't even think about you. He's never thought about you. And that kind of like that realization on his face where he even starts to put his gun down and just be like, "Oh, okay. Like, not only have been played, like maybe I'm less significant than I think I am in this story." And then he gets shot in the head, and it's over. Like it gets to the point where you're like, I'm starting to pity this guy for all the stuff, even though he made his bed. He did all this. He knew what he was doing, some of it at least, and allowed himself to be played. It's a tragic. And I think, I was really season one. I was coming out of season one. I was like, what are they doing with Syril? That was one of my big questions. Like, what are they doing with this character? We keep coming back to him, keep cutting back to him, eating cereal. It's funny, but how is this good storytelling? Where are we actually going with this? And I think, and some people may not be as enamored with this, like, oh, he gets shot and falls over and that's it for things. Like, where was it? I'm like, that's another thing. That's another kind of tragedy in the midst of tragedy. I'm just like, this guy gets swept up in this thing and he makes a lot of bad choices, but ultimately could have maybe made some good choices in the end, but he doesn't get a chance to. So yeah, it's the tragedy of Syril Karn, I guess.
I'm just thinking the Andor panel was the first panel of the day on the second day of celebration. It was in the morning. And I think there was a big missed opportunity there not to give every attendee a bowl of that blue cereal as they went in to eat during the panel.
Naturally.
I feel like we missed out, Hannah. We could have been sitting there.
Big time.
The panel.
Did they give out boxes of cereal for Kenobi?
They did. That's
They
right.
did,
They
yeah.
did a I don't know what that, some American sugar something with a
Yeah.
tiger on
It
it.
was
I don't know.
chocolate
What's that
frosted
brand?
sugar.
I don't know.
Chocolate frosted sugar bombs, I believe, is the brand name that you're looking for.
Love it. Love it.
Here's the here's the thing with Syril, right? He's always had this really twisted perception of the world. Obviously, he's an Imperial, but it comes from a pure place. He believes in justice. He believes in the idea that if you do something wrong, you should be punished for it. That's why he's going after Cassian. He doesn't know Cassian as a rebel. He doesn't know him as, somebody who's trying to undermine the Empire. He's not even necessarily like ideologically aligned with the Empire. He just sees the Empire as a tool of justice. And so he embraces it. That's where he embraces the ideology. And he goes with that. He runs with that for his entire life, his entire adult life. And as you were saying, Ben, he's in the middle of that massacre and he's looking around and he's realizing everything that he believed was a lie. Because the Empire isn't interested in justice. The Empire is interested in power. And the same goes for Dedra. He saw her as kind of like a kindred spirit. She's looking into Cassian. That must mean she wants to bring him to justice. She's looking into Cassian because it's a way up the ladder, within the ISB. And now she has reached this point where she can make the step to that next rung. All it takes is genocide. And that's her struggle in this episode, and we'll get to that in a moment. But for Syril, this realization that the Empire isn't about justice, it shatters his world. And you're right, there is sort of an open question of what he would have done if he had survived this, if he hadn't seen Cassian. That's there's a fascinating sort of what if hypothetical for folks to wonder about for years to come. But he sees Cassian, and in this moment of injustice that he is witnessing and that he has unwittingly been a part of, or kind of wittingly, but also unwittingly, he sees Cassian and he goes, I can't stop this. I cannot create justice for Gorman here. That is impossible. That is beyond what any one individual can do in this moment. But I can stop that fucking guy. That guy who started this whole thing. He is a criminal. He murdered those guys. I can stop him. I can get justice for those guys. And that's where the brawl happens. And just just adding on the terrific bit of filmmaking, of choreography, the tight shots on them, how you can hear the chaos going on around them, but you can't actually see it because you're so focused on their fight. And the final insult. Who are you? Cassian has dominated Syril's life. The idea of him has it's been a driving force in his life for a long time. And all Syril has wanted throughout his life, besides catching Cassian, is approval from people in power, from anybody, from his mother, from Partagaz, from Dedra, from anybody. And here is Cassian. The guy he's been hunting, the guy he's been tracking, doesn't even know who he is. He can't even give him the approval of, aha, my arch nemesis, Syril Karn. We shall do battle here, and I will defeat you in a duel. He doesn't get that. Gets nothing. Nothing. Who are you? And then he gets shot in the head. You almost feel like the who are you hurts more for Syril than the blaster bolt to the brain. Because this has been his life up until this point.
It's intense.
There's a tragedy there, even though Syril, has been an antagonist and went along with a lot of really bad things for a really long time.
And I think that's what's such an interesting and almost integral part of Star Wars storytelling, because you can really coin that sort of arc back to the OT and Vader. Vader's this mass killing machine that has no humanity to him, and then the final moments he's redeemed from the love and validation and care from his son, and that's the core of Star Wars right there. And this is almost what happens to Syril in a way, and I totally agree with your whole explanation there, Dom. And it really is like every single second we've had with Syril, I think he's really well written as a villain because you go, oh, I hate this guy. Like, he's such a narc. He's so, but the rules, he just dobs on everyone. And you're like, oh, this guy's so annoying. But for me, at least, the only slither of, oh, he's just a guy trying hard. He's just trying to do what he thinks is right. He's just got it wrong. The only slither of that I got was in that moment where Cassian says, who are you? And his face, that face drop, it's very subtle, but it's a face drop of him, Syril, thinking, oh my God, this probably wasn't that worth it. This wasn't worth all this.
Yeah.
Then there's that humanity. There's that, it's not really redemption, but it's just a moment of that vulnerability of he might actually acknowledge he's done the wrong thing here. And he was fighting for the wrong side. And then, like with most great redemptions and moments of heroicness, boom, gone. You see, good night. You're shot in the head. So yeah, I love that. I've always been so annoyed with Syril, but he had this just slither of hope in these final moments.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
And at the end of the episode, I felt for Edie when she was watching on.
Oh my God, I cried so bad when that happened. I was like, oh my God, the mum, no. Yes. Oh, yeah.
It's one of those. It's one of those things that Andor does really well. Everyone has a little bit of humanity. Everyone has the capacity for evil, and we've seen that across the show with all of these characters. And yeah, even Edie gets her moment.
And that is the different take that Andor brings to this. Not that other Star Wars stories haven't done this, but I think Andor does it best in regards to really focusing on the human element of this. I think there's Star Wars is good with mythology and fantastical elements and good versus evil. Big guy in black clothes fights a little guy in white clothes, and they have one has red, one has blue, and they fight. And this is things. It's very clear what's going on here. But Star Wars has always been about like even that dynamic is just like, oh, by the way, the guy in dark clothes is your father, and this complicates things. And then going further with that of just like, at the end of the day, these people are all human beings. They're not. We like to think of them as hero or villain, and Cassian is someone who I loved in Rogue One because he was someone who's like, this is a good guy, but he's done some bad stuff, and he's recognizing that. And I think you look at that and you're like, oh, you love to hate Syril because he's done all these bad things and he's made some bad choices. But at the end of the day, he's just a guy trying. And you look at Edie and it's just like, yeah, she's kind of a piece of work because she's kind of messed up her kid, clearly. And you see so much of what is wrong with Syril is probably because of her. But at the end of the day, it's a mother losing her son and crying over it. And not like, that's tough. That's real. It's heartbreaking.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about Syril's on again, off again love interest, Dedra Meero. Really on again, off again within this episode. This is a really sort of fascinating, I think, character study, much in the same way we got one with Syril, of Dedra. Again, within her core, I think knowing what she's doing is wrong, but choosing to do it anyway, which is kind of what you got to do to succeed in the Empire. And there's a moment I'm just going to quickly call out where Syril's confronting her about it. Did anyone get real Anakin and Padme on the platform in Revenge of the Sith vibes when she's going, we'd be famous within the Empire. We'll live on Coruscant. We'll do this. And he's just not having it. I never, going into this episode, if you would have said to me, there's going to be a scene where you think about Dedra Meero as Anakin Skywalker and Syril Karn as Padme Amidala, I never would have believed you. And yet there we were. Tom, I'll throw to you. What did you make of this internal battle that we see Dedra Meero go through over the course of this episode.
Yeah, that Anakin and Padme comparison, it was one of those things like I had the idea, but it wasn't fully formed, and that just made it click. And I'm a little bit blown away, but to me, that's exactly what they did. And she's always been about ambition. She's just as devoted to her job as Syril is, but she's
just better at it.
Yeah, she's just better at it. She's definitely putting it first, and she knows what the Empire is doing. She's not pretending to uphold order because it's the right thing to do. She's upholding order because it's her job. And they've reached an impasse, and I'm wondering, and this is my interpretation of things. I'd love to know what you guys think of it. But even though he choked her and almost killed her, I feel like she would have forgiven him for that. Just the way she was so focused on trying to find him in that crowd, and because to me that, you know, her actions were the actions of someone who wanted to make sure their loved one was safe. You know, is Syril safe? Is Syril all right? Yeah, it was.
I need a mini-sode between this week and next week of her doing that with Partagas and ending with a full no.
Oh my God,
yes.
Yeah, that would be something. But it'll be interesting to see because I don't think her story's done.
Mm-hmm.
Does she start to back away, or does she? Because there are two roads here. Either she backs away, doesn't take as much responsibility with the ISB, or she goes in full throttle. You know, did this make her a better person, or did it make her a worse person? And I'm interested to see that.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question, and I think to the scene specifically you're mentioning here, Dom. It is weird. Yeah, Tom, I agree. I think Dedra would have just been like, okay, you just assaulted me, but let's be together forever. Like the fact that she does say that is very telling of her ability to see clearly at this point. And I agree in the sense that I think there's something in her that's questioning the morality of this all, but she really can't orient herself to see where that clarity might be. And I think that show of someone she loves hurting her physically, just excuse that. That's fine. We'll do whatever. She's in that mentality of whether it's good or not, put it aside if it gets you to the end goal.
Yeah.
I think I just posted a clip of me talking about this in a other show. The symbolism of the everything about choking in this show is really, really in your face with it. I mean, even Luthen makes a lot of comments and notations about like feeling like he's drowning, he's choking, suffocating, all that kind of language. And then I love that even that's playing out with Dedra and like Syril physically chokes her, but then she has her scene where she really puts her guard down and she feels choked by the uniform of the Empire and she's grasping at it, trying to breathe physically, emotionally, in every way. And I think it shows exactly how, again, she really actually doesn't know, I think, right from wrong at this point. I think she's just, it's like if you, have you guys ever been like dumped by a wave in the ocean? You're trying to, the surf's just a little bit too big. You thought you could do it. And then you do that thing where it dumps here and it just completely spins you. And you don't really know, how to swim up and where's the surface. And it takes you a second. And you get that second of panic being like, I know I need to get to the surface, but which way is up? Oh my God. You have that kind of just moment experience. I think that's what Dedra's going through, but it's just this elongated period of time where she just knows she has to keep swimming, but she doesn't actually know how to come up for air. Again with the metaphors, impress myself with that.
I sometimes I have trouble breathing when I'm swimming in the snow. That's
so
neither
good.
here nor there.
So good.
Yeah. Here's what I'm fascinated to see with Dedra in the next 3 episodes, because I think there's sort of 3 ways she goes from this. One, just fully committed Imperial, dark soul, no emotions, cut all of that out. She's Tarkin, she's Krennic, she's Vader, she's Palpatine, she's Yularen, she's these people that don't care. She's emotionless basically at this point. So though she's just all that feeling, that being choked by it, she just forced it out of her, and now she just has nothing. She cares about nothing but furthering the Empire's goals and furthering her own goals within the Empire. Option 2, this thing will weigh on her and basically destroy her life, and she just sort of completely falls apart. And this great villain that we are expecting, in a way, because they do a lot in this episode with Will and Cassian to kind of set her up as the ultimate baddie for this show, for a confrontation in the final episodes. Like, she's the one who did Ferrix, she's the one who brought in Dr. Gorst, she's now responsible for the Gorman massacre. Like, she's responsible for a lot of the worst things that have happened on the show. So they do all that to set her up, and then they just kind of, almost like they've done with Syril, make her pathetic in the final episode. Option 3 is we get what we see what we didn't get with Syril, which is she realizes this is wrong and she decides to do something about it. And we're heading into Rogue One. We're heading into the Death Star territory. An ISB agent who knows why the Empire did what they did on Gorman, who knows a thing or two about the energy program, and might be able to dig a little deeper in the year's time between this episode and next episode, might uncover a secret project by the name Stardust, and might be able to start funneling some of that information to this nascent rebellion, which she has been working on, trying to uncover for years. Yeah. She still cares about Axis. She's still interested in what's going on there. Maybe we get a little Death Star tease from Dedra Meero, giving the rebellion a critical piece of information that may lead us into Rogue One.
So what if she did what she needed to do for Gorman? She could do anything she wants with her career. What if she wants to go back to finding Axis?
Yeah,
because she could do whatever she wants, and that's how. Like you said, Dom, she finds out what Stardust is and either feeds that information to Luthen or finds Luthen and they get in a fight on a bridge somewhere on Coruscant. They both fall down, and that's how their story ends.
Possible. Yeah,
I'm thinking one of those 2 things.
If we think about the beginning of Rogue One, like, different factions know different pieces about the Death Star. The Yavin rebels seem to know that they're building some kind of weapon. They don't quite know the extent of it, but they know it's being built. Saw knows, has something to do with the Kyber crystals. We saw some of that starting to play out in Rebels back in the day. And of course, he comes into possession of Bodhi Rook and the message that he has from Galen. And so, like, all of the information kind of comes together in Rogue One, and we know where Saw got some of his information. We don't quite know where the Yavin rebels got their stuff, and so maybe there's something in there that could be worked on. Or she could just be evil and this is just the villain for the final arc. Like, that is quite possibly the most likely outcome here, but maybe not. Andor and Star Wars in general have a tendency to play with our expectations in that way. And it wouldn't surprise me if there's more to Dedra than meets the eye. Let's get into Mon Mothma's storyline. She gives her speech. She escapes the Senate. With Cassian's help, we finally get the first meeting of Cassian and Mon Mothma. Lots of twists and turns to this storyline. Hannah, we'll throw right back to you. Your thoughts on Mon Mothma's big moment in the Senate.
Absolutely. I want to start off by showing off my favorite piece of the collection I currently have, which feels so appropriate right now. If it gets focused, there we go. Look at that in the senatorial robes that we see this epic moment in. Signed by Genevieve O'Reilly.
Yeah, for everybody listening, she's
Oh, yeah,
holding up,
true.
an awesome Mon Mothma trading card signed by Genevieve O'Reilly.
So good. This sequence, I just cannot fault. It is incredibly well done. The momentum, the intensity is perfection, but it's still not as easy as just do a great speech and run out the door. It's not as easy as that. It's very complex how it's set up. I love this random little side plot of Bale's people being corrupted, and one of them is an ISB agent. That's such a great little double, feature there. And there's so much movement in this action piece that I just absolutely love. This is not every single shot. I'm like, that's the best scene, but there's so much to it. My favorite kind of takeaway from this whole escape with Cassian and Mon is the fact that, I mean, like Dom just said, that these two characters finally coming together, working together. And I really read this as the two key leaders within the rebellion. They're both at the exact same time stepping into their fully fledged rebellion leader roles here. And this is really the kind of the gambit that Cassian takes, that is his final mission that he thinks, but really is the final mission in him becoming the rebel leader he needs to. And Mon Mothma has done her final senatorial act of her, to then stepping into the rebel leader she needs to be and not being so, secret anymore. And so both of those things sort of happen at the same time. But again, I love the sort of storytelling contrast between these two characters. In an example of Cassian being so well skilled now in these missions and just being able to tell like this, the Bail Organa spy person, being able to tell who that was and that character wasn't correct and killing her. And then furthermore, just point blank shooting Mon Mothma's driver as well. And Mon Mothma being absolutely horrified by those acts. But it shows that both of these leaders are so needed within the rebellion, but they're coming from such different contexts. And Mon Mothma's just absolute horror at those moments was so good. Such a great contrast. But yeah, it's really just this extreme moment of leaders emerging in this episode, really. But yeah, it's perfect. It's perfect.
Yeah. The escape, like when they first pitched the show to us as the audience, it was a spy thriller. I think that's the most spy thriller the series has been.
Yes, yeah,
and it's 100%. Been spy thriller at other places, but it was absolutely spy thriller in there. What did we think of the speech itself that Mon gives? Tom, I'll toss to you.
It was very much focused on Palpatine and the Gorman massacre, and I think knowing what she says in Rebels, I expected it to be more of like a let's all rise up. While this was, there's an evil and this is the evil. And both are equally treasonous. And I think both Genevieve O'Reilly and the story did such a great job of showing the amount of pressure and stress she felt in that moment. And watching it, it's just, we had the Mask of Fear book, the novel, earlier this year. And now it's really scary how Star Wars is mirroring what is going on for those of us unlucky enough right now to be in America. And, I'm hoping there's a way out, and I'm hoping it's not as tough as what they're going through in a galaxy far, far away. But it just really hits home. And we need people. The galaxy needs people to stand up and call out evil when it happens. So I do think that even though it wasn't we're starting a rebellion, join us, something like that in that place is needed. And just like with Marva's funeral speech. The Empire is trying to shut it down, and I don't want to say it took away from the speech at all, but it was entertaining watching. Was it Legret back in the ISB, like him realizing and then sending the order to shut it down, and that one front desk guy kind of get the runaround from the two techs, and you could tell they were in on it. That, I don't want to say entertaining, but that gave it some necessary lightheartedness, that you realize there are good people who realize what's going on and want this message out there also. So it did so much. It wasn't just she's giving a speech saying what's happening, but they put so much into that little bit.
Yeah. You hit on something there, Tom, that's been sort of fascinating with this season of Andor, and like you mentioned, the Mask of Fear. This show feels extremely relevant to our moment, but I will also add, it also feels timeless. It's addressing this moment, but it's addressing it in a way that, like, much as I like to make this comparison, Donald Trump and Chief Palpatine are not a one-to-one. Much as I like to make that comparison, it's a different thing. But the issue, the idea of trying to destroy the very concept of truth, of objective reality, that is something that we can trace back, to the beginning of time. Someone has always been trying to do that. And so, Gilroy is very smart. He's like George in this way, that he takes these things that are relevant and he finds a way to wrap them in a quality that is timeless. And so there's things within this episode. There's a couple of things within this episode. The speech, the massacre on Gorman. Like, we could sit here and do the parallel, like find the thing that is, most like that's happening right now. And it's pretty easy, unfortunately, to do that. And I do that in my review that I'm going to post on my Substack tomorrow. So you can look for that there. But it also feels like if somebody watches this in 100 years, when thankfully we've solved the crises that we find ourselves in now, they can watch that if they're watching it at sort of a moment of calm in the world. And hopefully it's an extended moment of calm for all of you people watching this 200 years from now. I hope for nothing but the best for you. Please wake up my my conscience from the AI simulator that it's stuck in. But what am I getting? But even if you're watching it at a time of calm, you can watch it and go, yeah, that's what happens. That's what happens. We spent a lot of time looking at the original trilogy, looking at the prequel trilogy, and comparing it to Nazi Germany, to other sort of evil regimes that have existed throughout history, and gone like, yeah, see, it mirrors that. It's like that. It has like a timeless quality where we can see the patterns that exist throughout history be reflected on the screen. It just so happens that right now we're at we find ourselves kind of at one of those moments where those patterns feel like right in our faces. And so these things like, terrific quotes like, the death of truth is the ultimate victory of evil. When truth leaves us and when we let it slip away, when it's ripped from our hands, we become vulnerable to the appetite of whatever monsters scream the loudest. Those that feels pretty relevant. Feels like somebody should say that in this galaxy right now instead of a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Between our galaxy and there, it's like poetry. They rhyme.
Exactly. Exactly. Powerful stuff. Ben, what do you want to weigh in on this? What do you think? Give us some thoughts.
I mean, it's a powerful reminder that Star Wars is fictional. Because I can't even fathom the idea of any politician anywhere on this planet standing up and saying, much less doing, any of the heroic things that Mon Mothma says and does in this episode. And it's just, obviously it's never felt more intense, never been more just enthralled by a person saying some stuff and then running out of a building Like that activity has never been more enthralling. And it's funny how like this is the one Andor episode where I knew exactly what was going to happen. It was weird watching this and being like, oh, okay, yeah, I know. And Cassian, I know why Cassian's here. I know why he's doing this. I know what's going to happen. It's like, watching the prequels. I'm just like, kind of know what's going to happen, but I don't know how it's going to happen. And just, it's beautiful. Her speech is incredible. Like it's just so well written. And then all that, and then on top of that, like the payoff of the show, which is we've been following Mon Mothma and Cassian this whole time, and to have them finally meet in this pivotal moment, I think is really satisfying. Just if you don't know anything about Star Wars, you've only watched this show, that is a satisfying moment. But then the ramifications of that, and then also the fact that I know it's not perfect, but it fits pretty darn well with Rebels. Like Gilroy does a pretty bang up job of dovetailing this all in to the point where they get to the apartment and they're like, oh yeah, she has to make a speech, and then they get to Yavin and like, oh yeah, Gold Squadron's going to bring him. Like, he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to mention all that stuff, but like, it's a direct reference to what's going on in Rebels. It's really it's really great continuity. And I know Star Wars does it really well sometimes, and also sometimes doesn't do it very well, but that's really, I think, something that you can like watch these two things side by side, and there's not anything glaring off the top that you will notice is wrong. It feels very natural.
Yeah, Tony Gilroy, for a guy who said he didn't like Star Wars, seems to really be fascinated by the lore, seems to be really fascinated by making everything line up, really like by the continuity. Tony definitely has his eye on canon. Let's get to the other sort of big reveal in this episode, or big sort of moment in these episodes, which is the origin story for one K-2SO.
Yeah.
What did we think? What did we think of when Cassian met K2? They finally see this story on screen. What did we think? So, anybody feel free to jump in here.
I loved, we get to see this play out. I did not love that it was directly after the most soul-crushing, heartbreakingly sobbing-inducing message from Bix to Cassian, where we all feel like we've just had our hearts ripped out and put in a blender. I was having to like wipe away the tears just so I could see, oh, this is a really beautiful moment of K2 and Cassian meeting. And I'm too busy trying to compose myself and understand that what Bix has just done. And it's like, oh, we're having this really special moment. So I liked that we saw it, but I didn't like when we saw it, because it just took me a second. And even on the second watch, the same thing happened. And I was like, in this moment with Bix talking, and then it's just like, oh, K2's here. But in saying that, it was actually kind of poetic how it's like, Bix left and that's when K2 came into Cassian's life. That's kind of poetic. I kind of like that.
Mm-hmm. Tom?
I think Hannah's right in that he loses Bix and gains K2. And it was weird coming after listening to what Bix had to say. But I think my interpretation of it is that he's doing what she says. Marvel wanted him to be a leader in the rebellion. We saw the same thing. Luthen telling him the same thing. All these people are seeing something in him. And here is Bix, the person he wants to be with, the person he's willing to give it all up for, is telling him, you need to do this. You need to focus on this. And that's how, the way I read it, that's how devoted he is to her, that he's not going to, he wanted to try and catch her on the shuttle, but he's not going to mope around the jungles, getting drunk and shooting things. He's going to get down to work. So he's going to try and tie down this droid. And then he meets K2. The one thing that was in the back of my mind, I read the comic that came out. I don't remember the comic. I remember vaguely what happened, but I know this wasn't it. I liked how you got, because we saw the K2 droids last season. But they were even more menacing here. Just throwing people across the town square and all this other stuff. So I liked how it was portrayed that this was a menace that could kill you with just its fingers. And Cassian had every reason to be afraid of it. And now, we know where they end up. And I'm hoping we're going to get to see, they won't be starting at square one next week when we see them, but we'll see more of their relationship develop. So I know it's different from the comic. I'm not bothered by that.
Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I think I only kind of was left with a few questions about that. I think, obviously it wasn't meant to be a dialogue heavy scene, and I don't want like somebody turning to the camera and being like, I'm doing this because of this thing. But, kind of like the whole idea of, do they, is this a thing they do? Is this thing they need a K2 droid? Like, what was Cassian's thinking? Obviously it lands him in a place where I think it's a really good, because I think what you get in Rogue One is their relationship is this, these two buddies that have been out romping around doing rebel stuff for a few years. But then you kind of dig into it and you're like, these two dudes really care about each other. Like, I love the moment where it's very funny, where slaps Cassian, and obviously in the very famous Diego Luna trying not to laugh and covering his face, but still laughing. You can still see it on camera. And then if it's a fresh one, if you mouth off again, they go through all the sequence, and then at the end of the sequence, K2, you can hear K2 in the background going, "Cassian, I'm sorry about the slap." And it's just like, okay, I get their relationship. I get that K2, for all him talking about how he seems to not care about anyone, really does care about Cassian. And you see it on Cassian's face when K2 dies, that Cassian really cares about K2. And I think adding the emotional element of this is right after Bix has left him, and now his only friend is this droid. That's really interesting. And really, the only other disappointment here is that we're just now getting K2 in the last arc. That's the only things. Like, I think things I watched the Andor premiere, like Alan Tudyk got one of the biggest cheers at Celebration. Like, people love that dude. People love K2. I'm glad he's in the season. Would have loved to have had more. And I guess we would have got a whole season of him in the original version of the show, but I'm not going to dwell on that any longer.
Yeah. So this was my part of the episode that I didn't like. It didn't work for me, and it's for, I think you all have kind of danced around the reasons, and it's because it feels out of place within this story. I quite like, I will say, like, I'm going to give sort of compliment sandwich this. I quite like the scene itself with when Cassian, or when K2 comes alive and says, if I've done something to offend you, I'm sorry, but please stop pointing those guns at me. I like that. I thought that was well done. But yeah, coming off of the super emotional Bix scene, it felt tacked on. It felt like the episode was supposed to end there, and then they went, "Oh crap, we didn't do the thing with the droid. All right, add another scene." And I felt the same way about the moment when Cassian actually finds the KX droid that he wants to take, because we've just been through the horrors of the Gorman massacre, and he's like, "You know what? A droid sounds nice right now." He just like it. It almost like he's almost like stopped and winked at the camera. I was like, "Diego, what are you doing?" Like it just has this like little, like it feels. Andor has largely avoided prequelitis. It doesn't feel like it's just doing things because it has to, because we want to know the origin of that. It's just been telling a really good story about this guy's life up until the moment when we meet him in Rogue One. Here it felt like we're doing it because we have to introduce this character at some point. The series is almost over, so it's got to happen sometime. So let's put it in here. And I appreciate the idea that Cassian, or that K2 comes into Cassian's life at the exact moment that Bix leaves it. But that needs more time to develop on screen, I think. And maybe we get that next week, and I will reserve some judgment for that. But I do think that needs to happen on screen. It can't be kind of one of those things that we're left to imply. I think that's too important a moment in both of these characters in their existence to just sort of hand wave away. And Star Wars has actually kind of already done this storyline. And I'm not saying they shouldn't do it again, but they've done a version of it like to perfection in Solo. Because that's basically what happens with Han and Chewie. You know, Chewie comes into Han's life at the exact moment that Kira leaves it. You know, she leaves him behind on that beach, and there's this really wonderful shot of Alden watching the ship fly away. He's this person that he has known for his entire life, that he loves, that he has been looking for years, thought he'd never see again. And then she came back into his life, and now she's betrayed him. It's this like moment of heartbreak, betrayal, all of these things. His life is shattered in front of him. And then Chewie's hand gets placed on his back and he starts to heal. Like this new friendship is going to help him move past it. Chewie's going to be there to help him. And that moment feels so wonderful and so earned because we've spent 2 hours with those characters and seeing how they meet and seeing how they work together and seeing how they've started to build this bond that we know will become the stuff of legend. And so it works really, really, really well in that version. And maybe it's unfair, but I compare it to this, and this again just feels like we just tacked it on at the end because we had to do it, because we had to show how these guys meet. Again, reserving judgment. Next week could change my opinion entirely, and I can come on here and do a mea culpa as I've done many times before. But in this moment right now, I look at that and I go, I don't love that. And this brings me to something else, which is I think this was the first week where I felt the absence of more episodes. I felt the like compressed timeline. I felt like we were missing pieces of this story, not huge pieces. And the pieces we are getting, to be clear, are excellent. They are the best. They are some of the best Star Wars we have ever gotten, if not the best Star Wars we have ever gotten. But we're missing some other ones. And because they went from 5 seasons to 2, things like getting to grow and evolve the Cassian and K2 relationship falls by the wayside a little bit. And if we'd even had 3 seasons or maybe a longer second season, maybe you could have done that. That's all hypothetical, you know, wishy-washy, what I wish could happen. I want more, but I know I shouldn't, yada, yada, yada. That all like it could have made this sort of moment feel more impactful. It could have been its own story instead of being, sort of shoehorned into a different one. The other scene that really felt this way was at the beginning between Bix and Vel, when Vel says, "I know you, Bix." I'm like, when? This is the first time you've been on screen together. When do you know? How do you know her? I know there's a year between every episode, but I would have liked to have seen that. It would have made that scene, again, it would have made that scene hit harder having seen that. But they had to make choices, and these are the choices that they made. And again, what they ultimately did is damn near perfection. So that's my thoughts. I didn't love it. I didn't love it.
I want to actually, Tom, do you have thoughts on that scene? Because I was about to change to a different scene.
Are we the K2 Cassian scene, or just are we talking about what didn't vibe with us?
Yeah, that's what I was wanting to get into. What do we all not vibe with?
Let's get our not vibe with stuff, because then there's more good things that we can end on later.
I'm ready. I can move on to, but you can go first, Hannah, about what didn't vibe with me.
Yeah, sure. The one thing that I didn't love that they did is back to this Syril dying and Syril and Cassian dying. I didn't love that the space French leader dude, I didn't love that he was the one to kill Syril. I didn't like that. I don't think he was important enough. Like, yes, that character was important, and he was the one that, you know, kind of Syril was face to face with on Gorman. I don't think I still don't think he was that important to be the one to end Syril. I think I would have preferred if it was a stormtrooper that mistaked Syril for a Gorman, and stormtrooper killed him. I think that would have been more poetic. That Syril thought he was being Empire and helping Empire, but even Syril didn't realize how much of a kind of a human civilian he had become with the Gorman people. That the stormtrooper thought, and you could have even put in a line being like, "There's 2 more Gormans over here," and then he kills Syril, kind of thing. I think that would have been more poetic to me. I didn't love that it was the space French dude.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tom, what didn't vibe for you?
Okay. Dom, like you said, I think there's so much. Well, I think you said there were little things, but I think there's a lot that we're not going to be able to get. And we could always, I think Tony Gilroy is being very generous in that there are other ways we can get this, but I want to see how the Alliance came together. I love the idea that we're seeing in the new canon how it really is an alliance of all these different groups. So I want to know how they got together. I want all these things we're not going to be able to get. But the thing from this episode is Lita and Perrin. Especially after season 1, I don't like them, but at the same time I do. And
love to hate them.
Yeah, Mon Mothma is making a huge sacrifice, and probably couldn't have brought them along or done a goodbye message, kind of like Bix left for Cassian. But knowing how the Empire operates in other media we've gotten, they're not going to be having a good time after this. So maybe we'll find out something happened. Next week, maybe Perrin goes full Empire. Maybe he's, what is it, his last name Firtha? Maybe he comes Moff Firtha or whatever, giving the Empire all this information he had on Mon and turning over the family finances. But it did, and obviously she had a lot on her mind before the speech, but there's just no there was just no link there between her family. But at the same time, it was a sacrifice that she had to make.
Yeah, and her family was such a critical part of not just last season, but the first part of this season, right? The first arc is all about her relationships with, specifically her relationship with Lita. So, yeah, if there's something I'm hoping for from the Mon storyline next episode, it's some kind of revisiting of Perrin and Lita for the finale.
Right.
Ben, what didn't you vibe with?
Well, Tom took the words right out of my mouth. I was the absence of the Mothmas. No, you articulated it quite well, and I'm glad you brought it up, because I think it was like, it's one of those things where like it could be rectified next episode, maybe. But I think one of the favorite aspects, one of the best worst aspects of like season 1 and going into season 2 was just like that family unit of like Perrin and Lita and their really bad relationship. And like, I'm looking forward to watching this blow up. I'm looking forward to how this affects those characters and how they may get some comeuppance. I think it was complicated by how kind of cordial she was with Perrin in the first arc. And I think after reading, the book Mask of Fear, how there is, I think, some love there between them.
Yeah.
Like, it's this bad relationship, it's this bad arranged marriage, but I think she obviously cares about Lita and she cares about Perrin. And I think, as you said, Tom, like, bad stuff's going to happen. Like, what things, like, what's going on with them. And like, I feel like it could have been a line or something. It didn't have to be an appearance. It could have been like her mentioning them or talking about them or something. I get maybe Lita's a little bit out of the picture. She's married off. Maybe she's on another planet. She's on her honeymoon or something. Who knows? It's been 4 years, but maybe a long honeymoon.
Well, they have the weddings last a weekend. The honeymoons last 5 years on Chandra.
Exactly. So, I can forgive Lita, but Perrin's a pretty big part of this. He was on course out with her last time we saw them, makes sense. My main complaint is concerning Bix. And I am glad that she hasn't been killed off. I'm glad that she has seemingly left the show and she's going to be around, and that obviously leaves the door open, as Star Wars loves to do, bring back characters that we know and love. And Bix is one of the top characters I think has made a huge impression. But they may as well have killed her off in the sense of this show, unless, again, could be rectified, next week. She could show back up. But I don't like how essentially she has been fridged. And for those who don't know, the fridging is this whole idea of like basically this trope that is ongoing through hundreds of years of fiction, or probably thousands, of like a female character being killed off to motivate a male character into doing something. Now Bix isn't dead, but she's taken herself out of the picture to motivate Cassian. And I think I was really looking forward to like her doing something, her being a more pivotal part of the plot. I think it was this, coming out of the first arc of her dealing with this and having what she experiences is there, her dealing with trying to get over her demons, her killing Dr. Goris, which I thought might be a catalyst of her actually becoming an operative in the field. And then she spends the entirety of this arc at home, just doing nothing, basically. Obviously, there's some great moments between them and this, but it's mostly just like she's been reduced to the prize at the end of Cassian's story that he will never get. And I think she deserved better.
Interesting. Yeah. Here's where I was saying,
yeah.
You Hannah, you go ahead. You take it away.
No, I don't really have any coherent thought. I just wanted to say I disagree.
Okay, fair. Here's what I'll say. I think this is where I was just complaining about the 1 year gaps. Here's where they might be able to work in favor of the show, like in favor of fixing a potential issue. If you see it as an issue, we can get the alternate perspective in a minute from somebody else. But I will say, the fact that we're going to go away for a year and come back, and once we revisit, that is not a lot of time for us as the audience, but it could be a very long time for the characters, and that could justify her leaving and coming back because it's been a year in the story. But we can return to this topic in just a moment, because first we got another person to bring on the show. Chris has made it.
Hi, I'm here. I've been so upset that I wasn't able to be on last week, and I can't do a full show next week, so I had to call in because I have to talk about Andor. I can't not talk about Andor on this podcast.
All right, give us your overall thoughts, Chris, on this trio of episodes. Let's try and sum up this massive, insane, heartbreaking, gut-wrenching arc in like 2 minutes. Good luck.
All right, get ready, buckle up. I think I've only seen these things once. I wish I had time to watch it 10 times, but I've only seen them once. But I think that this is the best Star Wars ever. Period. This is the first time when I've said, "Wow, this actually brings Star Wars to levels deeper than Empire Strikes Back," which I didn't know if we'd ever see that. I thought Empire might stay forever as the pinnacle, which is kind of really not a great thing when you think about it. Why should a movie from 1980 always be the best thing and never be surpassed? Like, we always go back and say, that's the best thing. That's the litmus test for everything. Is it good as Empire? Does it hold up to Empire? And I think we've finally moved Star Wars and we've evolved it into something that is kind of one step deeper, and one step more of an allegory of our world than Empire was, which already was so much. So I think these episodes, because they're so good, and this season because it's so good, first of all, I think this is good television in general. I think even if someone is not a fan of Star Wars and doesn't like lightsabers and the Force and all that, they're going to love this if they love just good prestige television, because the writing, the acting, all the elements are just so incredible. But it's just extra special to me that I get to watch a show that is one of my favorite shows, but it's also a Star Wars show. So it still ties into all of the things that I'm nostalgic for. But I would love this show even if it was a Star Trek show or a Battlestar Galactica show or Dune or whatever. I would love it. So yeah, I love it. I just think I keep counting the things that Star Wars has done for the first time in this show, and that's continued to happen into these episodes all season. And yeah, I'm so excited for the last few episodes of the show, because I think that this season is going to go down as one of the greatest seasons in the history of television. It's amazing.
It is certainly that. Chris, I want to take your temperature on something, because this was something we spent a lot of time in the last 2.5 years discussing and debating going into the season. And that is, and we were just talking about this, the 1 year gaps between episode arcs. How have you felt about that in how this season has been executed?
So I was concerned about it because I thought the pace of the first season was perfect, and that obviously took place over a much less period of time. So I was worried about changing up that formula. But now that we've seen 75% of the season, it's working. It's working for me. And I think the reason why is because the run times of the episodes are so long. Like these are much longer than your typical Ahsoka Mandalorian episodes that sometimes will just barely get over 30 minutes in length. Like these things are 40 minutes to an hour long. And because of that, I feel like they have enough time to not rush the pace of the story. So even though they're doing those big gaps, I feel like they're able to tell all the important moments in the development of both the plot and the characters, so that you still get the full range of the story and the progression. So for me, it's kind of similar to the original trilogy, how there was gaps between episodes 4, 5, and 6. And we got, a couple hours each of those. And then if you put the runtimes together of these 3 episode arcs, it's basically a movie length in itself. So to me, this is like a series of 4 movies that have a year between each of them. And it's as satisfying to me as like the franchise and their movies. Or some of the Star Wars movies that have those links between them.
Okay, yeah, by and large agree. We've gotten into simple things where there's been some wonkiness, but as we've said, the season as a whole, it's been strong. Can't really argue with that. Chris, how are you on time? Like, can you stick around for a bit, or are you? Or is this?
I've got all the time in the world. My phone's gonna die at some point. But the only issue is that I think there's like a 2-second delay, so I apologize for that. At some point I will literally plug my phone in to keep it alive if the show's still going. So I'm good. I'm good to hang out for a bit and continue the conversation.
Okay, brilliant. So let's get back to talking about Bix, because Ben, we heard from you why you don't like it. Hannah, you alluded to the fact that you are much happier with Bix's portrayal in these episodes. So I'm going to throw it back to you. Give us your overall thoughts on Bix Kayleen in these 3 eps.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of see, Ben, where you're coming from, saying like I kind of expecting more from her in that, the previous arc was her wrestling with the physical experience of trying to manage her trauma and her kind of mental state. And then she seemingly, felt that relief and ability to kind of let go of that experience. And in this arc, she's seemingly better, so to speak, that maybe she had ability for more. But I think there's something just before she could do anything, because you saw her when Wilman came back and Wilman's like, hey, Luthen wants you. Bix is kind of keen to do it. You know what I mean? She's kind of keen to be like, okay, yeah, let's weigh up, can I be involved? So I kind of get that, like, okay, we didn't see her actually get into the action, but I think she's still very active in being there and morally, like, where we're at with her. And I don't know, I just think the whole sacrifice at the end of what she says to Cassian, maybe I'm just not as media like literate in terms of what was that term you said? Fridging,
yeah.
Fridging, yeah. I have never heard of that, and I've never even known it as a concept, really, actually. And so I honestly have no problem with the fact that she's like, I'm going to give myself up, sacrifice.
Hannah, you muted yourself.
Oh my God. I love the fact that she's going, I'm going to sacrifice our love and relationship for the greater good, because I think, this will, strip away what you need to focus on, Cassian. I think that's beautiful. I really have zero problem with that as a concept, honestly. So, yeah, I think I like it. I like her sacrifice. I think it's important. I would have been cool to see her do more badass things, because I think her going in, and actually that was a criticism of the previous arc I had. Her going in and like enacting revenge on Dr. Gorse should have been like a 20-minute sequence. That should have been a lot bigger and longer than it was, because that was absolutely amazing and super important to the whole story of Biggs. So I wish that was longer, but I've got no problem with her just being who she is,
also,
and then giving the sacrifice.
It's set up at the beginning with the interaction with the Force Healer, and the Force Healer seemingly sensing maybe what Cassian is going to do. But also, my thought on the Force Healer is that just comes out of nowhere. All of a sudden, there's Force Healers in this show, and they're talking about the Force. Like, that's kind of weird to me, a little bit. So yeah.
So let's dive into the Force Healer thing for a minute here, because
by the way, I still like this show. Okay, I still like these episodes.
Ben's a hater.
Grievances.
Ben's a hater. Let's dive into that for a minute here, because this is something that I think Andor does really well. That Andor exists in a part of the galaxy, like a pocket of the galaxy, that is hinted at in the original trilogy and the other movies and the other shows. It's always alluded that there's this really sort of dark political underbelly to the story. It's always alluded to, but we very rarely get to see very much of it. And Andor's like, no, we will exist in that space. But in return, it sort of hints at the lighter, more spiritual side of the Star Wars galaxy that we see at the forefront in other storylines. So in season 1, we got kind of, everything is so serious. Everything is so like dark and gritty. And then we get those wacky trolls that capture Cassian and Melshi, and they're like, "Moisey, the water's poisoned." Like they're really fun. Love them. But like this tonally completely out of place in Andor, but it's hinting at the sort of lighter side of Star Wars. And here we get that again. We're getting that kind of hint at the more mystical, spiritual side of things by bringing in the Force Healer and having her sense that there's something important about Cassian, sensing that he has a destiny. Star Wars is a little obsessed with destiny, a little too much sometimes, I think, but this plays into that. That is a Star Wars trope. This is like giving us a little hint at that part of the galaxy. I really liked that she called him a messenger. I thought that was perfect. Like it's on the nose, because like, what's the biggest thing Cassian ever does? Good. Well, he helps get the Death Star plans. He sends the message of the Death Star plans out to the galaxy. But when you look back at his entire life through these seasons, the first 2 seasons, everything he does is be a messenger, whether it's helping other people get their message out, like Nemec or Luthen or Marva, or like, be the message deliverer himself. Like literally at the end of this episode, the episode called Messenger, he moves Mon. He helps Mon get out of the Senate so that she can send her message out to the galaxy. Like that is who Cassian is. I thought that was a really, really clever way of like hinting at his future, winking and nodding at those of us that know what's to come for what he's going to do, but also like summing up his character in a really sort of beautiful, succinct way. I don't know. Tom, what did you think of the inclusion of the Force Healer in the story?
Yeah, I didn't expect that because I think Tony Gilroy has shied away from showing the mystical side of Star Wars, but I think he handled it very well. And I really love all these looks we've gotten at, throughout the new canon of non-Jedi, non-Sith Force users and my interpretation of it was that she was a cook and she had this gift that kind of sort of didn't work. She's, in tune with the Force. And for Cassian, it told her something. And I really like that we're seeing different views of the application of the Force in real life in Star Wars. And it meant something to Cassian. And, now I think it also changes how you look at the end of Rogue One. What he thinks after, the message went out and his line about, people hearing what they had to say and him and Jin on the beach, how much of, obviously, was made 8 years ago, or 9 years ago now, but now, okay, that character, that's got to be on his mind at some point there.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, what did you think of this element?
Well, so I have kind of a theory that I'm probably going to be working on over some time. And that's going to be the theory that maybe Andor is in a parallel universe to the rest of Star Wars. I still think it integrates very well, but I also think I still think that's a strong theory, and I'll talk about that maybe in the future. But I think the thing that's really interesting about Andor is that it brings a level of realism to Star Wars that you don't really see. Star Wars tends to be very fantastical, very it's mythology, it's modern mythology, and it is very escapist from our current reality, and it draws analogies on extremely abstract levels. Andor does not. Andor is very literal. There's so many elements, whether it be the dialogue, the plots, the situations, the physical props in the show, the costumes, everything is a little bit closer to our reality. Still not our reality, still Star Wars, but a little bit closer than anything else that is Star Wars, in my opinion. And so I think that goes for the Force as well. I think that the Force in the Andor series is similar to how spiritual powers would be experienced by people in our reality. In our reality, you wouldn't see Mace Windu go and take on 1,000 battle droids. Like, that's just something you wouldn't see in our reality. There's no basis for that. That's mythological. It's allegorical. It's art. It's not reality. What you might come across is somebody who there's this claim that they might be able to use some type of energy work to heal you mentally or physically or spiritually, and they might be uncertain about it. And then something kind of trippy might happen where they kind of have a vision of something. And like, these are things that a lot of people talk about and report happening in our reality. So when that Force healer, that whole scene with the Force healer, I felt like that entire sequence could have, if that had happened like in my life, I wouldn't have had my complete conception of reality turned on its head. Like if Mace Windu had just killed 100 battle droids in front of me, I would have been like, well, that's interesting. That kind of is like something I experienced before or heard someone talk about before. So I feel like it's just very grounded in reality, and it's a way of showing the everyday person in the galaxy's experience of what the Force is and how it could interact with their lives in a much more realistic, less fantastical, less abstract and allegorical way, which I really appreciated. I liked seeing that perspective. I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it gives you a different. I mean, that is the Andor's thing. I don't think Andor exists in a parallel universe, but it does like
give us fun theory.
Yeah, it gives us that like on the ground sort of feeling, much in the same way that, like, you know, we talked about, like, Skeleton Crew gives you like this people just living their lives in Star Wars without interacting with the larger galaxy. Here, this is like another spin on that. People just living their lives without interacting with the Force in a way that is, you know, grandiose, the way that we've seen in the movies. We've covered a lot. And I do think we could double our time here and keep going on this. But I think we've kind of hit the key points. And the beauty of Andor and the beauty of the next year or so is that we will have a lot of time to break this down, because there's not going to be shows on the air every week like there were for a long time. So we will have time to return to these wacky theories, these debates, these ideas, and go further in depth on them in the time between now and, I don't know, I guess Ahsoka's the next live action show. We'll have some animated stuff in there, which we look forward to, but we'll get to that. We will have more time to dive into Andor than I think we have with any of the other shows. And I think that's a good thing. So in that spirit, I think we will leave things here and begin to wrap things up for this week. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Boy, it was great to be back. I've missed this. I miss having the crew all together, finally reunited after over a month apart. It's been fun. It's been a blast to talk about this. And it's been a blast to have King Tom here to break down the episode. Tom, thank you so much for being on. If people want to keep up with you, what's the best way they can do that?
First of all, thank you for having me so much. This was a lot of fun. Always love talking Star Wars. You can listen to me every week. One of 6 hosts on the Sith list that comes out Thursdays. And then you can follow me on Blue Sky at Tom Chansky.
At Tom Chansky on the Blue Sky. Check it out. And check out the Sith list. Such a fun show with all of you guys over there. Ben, we didn't leave you. We came back. We've returned to hug you and make you feel
it's like
warm
a dream.
And loved.
I'm not alone anymore.
It's true.
All right, Lonnie, settle down. Settle down, Lonnie.
All right, Ben, you have one more week. One more week to pull off the Lonnie cosplay. Just grow the mustache and you're there.
I know.
Ben, thank you for holding things down while we've all been off running around doing things. And thank you for being here this week. Plug away, my friend. Plug away at things you want to talk about.
No, it's absolutely my pleasure that my schedule just seems to have been stable. Thank God my schedule was stable the past month. Because I don't know what the show just wouldn't have happened. But yeah. It's good to have the family back all in one piece, and glad at least most of us are back. Hannah here, Hannah's voice not here, unfortunately.
We'll find out if that's back next week. Yeah, tune in next week to see if that's in full force.
But yeah, we have so much. I mean, I have thoughts. I know you guys haven't been on the show in quite a while. You have many thoughts about many things. You experience so many things. I'm looking forward to hearing. I have thoughts about other things about Celebration, things that have been announced that we haven't talked about at all. It's quite frustrating, if I'm being honest. To have so much going on and just have, we could do a freaking podcast every day and not cover everything. But as you said, I think we'll have some downtime afterwards to things, and we also have an anniversary. We have a 15th anniversary to celebrate. Okay, that's a thing that's going to happen eventually.
Yeah.
That happened while you guys were gone. That came about, which is just so ironic. This is so funny. But for now, I'm gonna stop talking and thank you all guys for listening, and we'll be back hopefully next week.
All right, Ben, go swim through a blizzard for me, would you? All right, Hannah, it was good to see you. I will admit it was slightly less fun than the last time I saw you, when we weren't in these sad little screen boxes and we were standing next to each other at Star Wars Celebration. But it was good to reunite in this form. Plug what's going on the Raeside if you have any voice left.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be doing live shows. Well, obviously, I haven't been doing any live shows for the past 3 weeks on the channel. But I'll be back next week. Pre-show, post-show for Andor, the final episodes. It's gonna be a good time. It's absolutely crazy. So yeah, cannot wait to get into it. It's been amazing.
All right, check out the Raeside, the RAE side on YouTube and beyond. Chris, you made it. Thank you for making it. Thank you for recording from what appears to be the back of a van. Appreciate you making it. Anything you want to say before we go?
Thank you for putting up with my scrambled pirate signal. I will be transmitting from a different location next week. We'll see if it's more scrambled or less scrambled.
All right, we will find out then. Before we go, one final reminder: if you've enjoyed the show, and you haven't done this already, make sure you subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, however you like to listen or watch. Become a channel member if you want to support the show in a financial means, and review it if your platform allows you to review it. Keep the discussion going between shows and join the Discord. See what Ben and Joel are cooking up over there. And follow us on social media at VSWU pretty much everywhere. You might need to add a .bssky or something on there to make it work properly. And of course, check out the other great programming on the Star Wars Underworld Network, including Ion Cannon, Tractor Beam, Tales from Beyond the Galaxy, and of course, the Raeside. That's it. We're out of here. We will see you all in 7 days when we will discuss the series, yes, series, single tier of Andor, A Star Wars Story. For Ben, Hannah, Chris, Tom, and all the other wonderful people here at the Star Wars Underworld, my name is Dominic, and may the Force be with you. It's a wrap.